Let's get started, and I'm going to get started by imposing on the person who's last talking, which would be Leonard. Leonard, could you please return thanks for us, sir?
Join me in prayer, please. Lord, we just thank you so much for this day and all the many blessings you give us. Thank you, Lord, for these ladies that prepare a meal for us this morning. Bless this food to the nourish from our body and our body to your soul. In your name we pray.
Amen. Well, I'm going to introduce this as I did last week, and hopefully it'll become a tradition. Lean your arms on the windowsill of heaven and gaze upon your God. This is the hour of prayer. Is it? Okay, best I can do. Um, we're we are missing a speaker right now. We communicated several times, most recently yesterday, and I just called him, couldn't get an answer, and don't see him here. So you may have an exciting speaker. That is exciting because you can catch him just babbling. Um, so while we wait and see if the speaker shows up, why don't we have announcements? Mike? Okay.
Okay, let's talk about our schedule. Brother Dave, will you mention that? So, on the week of Thanksgiving, we will not have power hour or prayer breakfast the week of Thanksgiving. And so, also, let me give you some more dates so you can. Let's see. December the 22nd, we'll not have power hour. The 29th or the 5th. So, and I'm not sure about the prayer breakfast yet.
The 17th of December will be the last date that we meet in December. And then the following next 2 weeks we will not meet. We'll start back up, I think, on the 7th of January. We'll be just praying from home and all that stuff. But that having been said, I'm going to start, I'll put the collection plates out the first Friday of December. We'll only have 2 Fridays to collect for the appreciation gift for the girls' petition that we normally give them every Christmas. So just giving you a heads up that beginning in December, we'll pick up the collection for the girls. And we won't be meeting after the 17th will be the day that we give them their gift.
Okay. Any other announcements? I want to help my friend finish his breakfast for one thing, but I do have something I want to cover. And we're living in angry times. Would you not agree on that? And I want to say, I'm throwing this out there, guys. One of the things I've had to deal with in my life is anger. I have anger issues. I don't know about you. And I can get pretty aggressive if somebody gets aggressive with me. I don't like that, but I do. And I want to talk about how to respond to it. I read this, and it's so I'm asking you to pray for me about my anger, that I keep it under control. I'm having issues with my oldest son because kids know how to push your buttons. You dads, would y'all agree with that, especially sons? And I unloaded on him, and he hadn't spoken to me in about 6 months. So I'm trying to restore that back and see if I can keep my mouth shut. But I want to talk about 3 ways to respond. How do we respond to anger? We should respond. When anger arises about someone or something, the first thing we need to do is to delay the expression of anger. Hold off a little bit. You know, I know there are different sayings about holding off on our anger. Well, one day, Secretary of War Stanton complained to President Lincoln of a general who had spoken to him with extremely abusive language. I want to say that it's not just generals who speak to people in abusive language. Sometimes church members speak to each other in abusive language, and sometimes men speak to staff at churches with abusive language, and we need to watch that. It's not right. And you know, most of the time, a staff member cannot talk to you like you can talk to him. And don't take advantage of that. And I'm not saying somebody has spoken to me badly, but I'm just saying. So he told Lincoln that this general had spoken to him terribly, and Lincoln suggested writing him a sharp letter. So he wrote a strong worded letter and then showed it to the president. And Lincoln said, "Right, right." And he said, "Score him deeply. That's first rate." And so he said, "Man, you did a good job." When Stanton then folded the letter, put it in an envelope, Lincoln interrupted him and said, "What are you doing with that?" He said, "I'm going to mail it to him." "Nonsense," said the president. "You don't want to send that letter. Put it in the stove." That's what I do when I write a letter when I'm angry. It's a good letter, and you had a good one writing it. You feel better now. Burn it and write another letter. So he was telling him to delay the expression of anger, and I pray I can get better at that as I get older. You guys, if you've had anger issues, tell me if you get better with it as you get older. And then define the reason for your anger. We should determine why we are angry and with whom we are angry. Only then can we give a response that is congruent with the problem. When we define it at whom we are angry, we can give a response to the right person. I think we overreact sometimes. We don't gather all the information, or we could just ignore it and walk away. So we should define the reason we're angry. And then finally, he said to diffuse the source of our anger by either changing the circumstances that stimulated the anger, by changing our attitude. It says an old proverb says, "Whom the gods would destroy, they first make mad." Why? Because uncontrolled anger in the life of an individual will eventually destroy that individual. And I'm reminded, I think part of my issue has been that my dad was a very angry man. And it's funny how quick you can pick up things from your parents or your family to do that. And I'll leave you with this. It said 2 golfers were annoyed by an unusually slow twosome in front of them. One of the offending pair was going down the fairway real slow and searching diligently in the rough, and the golfers behind him said, "Why don't you help your friend find his ball?" He said this: "He's got his ball, he's looking for his golf club." So anyway.
Thanks, Mike. And I don't know about the other old guys in here, but I will say I don't tend to rage any more than I did, probably less. But there's a whole lot more that irritates me. And so, yeah, Tom? Okay. While we're at it, yeah, Alan? Thanks. Any other announcements? Yeah, Allie?
Yeah, next Thursday, outgoing President David Rudd will be our speaker at SALT, 11 a.m., followed by a box lunch that Debbie prepares, and it's always great. So hope we have a nice crowd. I'm sure Dr. Rudd will have a lot to share with us, and hopefully about the new president also.
All right. Yes, sir. Yeah, you, Jonathan? All right, thanks. Any other announcements? Do we have any guests here today? Ricky, yes. Okay.
Say something right this second. There are a lot
Yeah.
of garage sales that go along, and many times, lots of small kids who are thrown in these garage sales. So make it a point, check out your garage sales this coming weekend. You'll come up with hundreds of those. There you go.
And where can we bring them again, Pastor Ricky? Where can we, where could we bring? Okay. Where could we bring them?
No, what we'll do, once we get all the information from Shelby County School, I'll come back and let you know.
Right.
how we do
Okay.
it.
That-
But most of the company, a lot of individual companies here just make a donation and then we go out and get the folks.
okay. All right.
I'll just let you know exactly, at next Friday, exactly how it's going to be.
Excellent. Okay. Tom? It is. Welcome back, Ray. I was just going to say, if there's a table that needs a psychiatrist, he picked the right one. That's right. Which means Ray needs to come back. Okay. Any guests? Then I'm going to lead you through a very short devotion, and it goes something like this. In our class, we've been studying the Gospel of Matthew, and we've been kind of flashbacking it, which is what I like to do, and I hope what the class enjoys. But what I want to do right now is take a look at that particular gospel with you for a minute, and maybe give you some thoughts about reading it and about the story it tells of our older brother Jesus. You know, we think so often of Jesus as God, as, you know, Jesus, the third part of the Trinity. When he was walking this earth, he was one of us, and he acted like one of us. And as you read the story of Matthew, which starts with his birth and ends with the Great Commission, which is why we're all here today, you see the story of Jesus as God speaks to him, and as he learns, as I read the gospel anyway, the fate that awaits him and the price that he's going to have to pay for achieving what God has set out for him to do. And you also see in Matthew a Jewish Jesus more than anything else, one who fights with people and argues with people about the law, but one who recognizes that God laid down his law for his people and for all people in the scriptures. And of course, at the time Jesus was walking this earth, the scriptures only consisted of what we now call the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. And he recognized that the law, as it was being practiced, never quite met the standard of the law as God had laid it down. That there are rules, the Ten Commandments are some of them, the laws of Noah that go before that bind us all. And if we break those laws, we are sinners. The arguments that you see in the Bible and in the book of Matthew so often, where Jesus is arguing with the Pharisees, are in some way an argument among brothers, because Jesus was a Jew and Jesus was one of them. Sort of like an argument among brothers and sisters at the Thanksgiving table, and we've all had those. There's a great respect in there for each other, and a great respect in how Jesus treats everybody. And going back to Mike's short comment before, there are also a few places in Matthew where Jesus just got right irritated. And I don't mean just the scene where, or the story of Jesus getting angry in the temple and throwing over tables and flogging people, which is there's some real anger there. But you can see Jesus responding as a man, responding as one of us, and dealing with irritating things that come up. There's a story we've just talked about where a woman approached him, and he just, for whatever reason that day, didn't want to talk to her. It's the story of the Canaanite woman who came to him and said, "My daughter's got a demon, help me." And he said, "Look, lady, I'm here for the Jews. It's not time for you yet. Go away." And she wouldn't leave him alone. And you can just see as you read through that scripture in the 14th chapter of Mark, I think, where he wrestles with that, and she talks him into helping his daughter, which he did. As Matthew saw it, that was before Jesus was to reach out to the Gentiles while he was still giving the Jews a chance. But the story in there always is that Jesus did his best to discern the will of God. And interestingly, God showed his will sometimes through non-believers, through the Canaanite woman. So in that story of Jesus, you can see not him dealing with God on high and legions of angels, but him dealing with the same things that we deal with every day. And of course, I, at this point in my life, realize that he's younger than my youngest child at the time he goes to the cross. He's a very young man, although in those days 33 was a pretty healthy old age. I think the life expectancy was somewhere around 40. But the thing I'd like, I guess, for you all to take away from this message and to think about as we get ready to pray is our scriptures and our church teach us he was not just fully God. He was not just the one who is present with us now after Pentecost. He was a real man who did real manly things, who dealt with and struggled with the same things we did while God was leading him. So remember that, if you will. And now let's proceed to our prayer request. And is Jeff here? I was just calling you. Jeff, come on up.